All right, what's up, everyone? So, today, what you are going to be watching is a pretty much archetype profiling session that I did with Nate Rasa. So, I have not started teaching about the Greek god and goddess archetypes on my channel yet because I've been like studying them, and it's very heavy. I want to be able to teach it in a way that'll make very clear sense to everyone who is watching the content and everything. And I also want to find like the most efficient and effective way to like make it a series and stuff like that. But yeah, this is based off of the books by shoot, I can't remember her name, Miss Bolin. Hopefully I'm showing a picture right now. I want to say Jean Bolin. Oh man, I can't remember the name at the moment. But it's based off of the books Gods in Every Man and Goddesses in Every Woman. And it's essentially the idea or the concept of taking the Greek gods and goddesses and making them into different archetypal energies of the masculine and the feminine, and then having kind of like a round table in our psyche, which would represent which ones are the most dominant in us and which ones are, the most play the biggest roles in us in that case. So in this session with Nate, I talked to him to pretty much identify which I already had an idea, a strong idea of like which gods and goddesses that I most resonated with, my Anima and my Animuses, and I wanted to see what Nate would think of the things that I shared. But yeah, after this, I'm planning to shortly after start teaching about all of these things on my channel. But in the meantime, you can enjoy this video, get the books, Gods in Every Man, Goddesses in Every Woman, if you're interested, and check out Personality Hackers podcast, where they did a whole series on everything there as well. I thought that was like really great too. But yeah, without further ado, brace yourself. I tried to be very honest in this session. So here's another opportunity to get to know me a little bit more than you probably already do now. I have no idea how this is about to go, but let's go.
All right. Well, a lot of the times when I do these things, I'm actually not the talkative one in these situations.
Oh, yeah. That's
which is right. I mean, I find it funny though, because folks usually, with me just coming in being like, "Hi, I'm Nate," blah 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 blah, for the entire time. But I do actually do like a really quick switch around when it comes to archetypal identification, whatever you want to call it. So basically, in this little gig in our conversation right now, we're just going to me casually observing and listening to really what you say and like whatever you're comfortable telling me and all that kind of stuff. And I will let you know my observations, because a lot of the times I've noticed that a lot of folks, when they do speak about themselves, based on some questions that I ask them, there's a lot I could pull out of it, but then I need to be like focused and listening to exactly what they say. And like, so even I don't necessarily know like where we're gonna go. A lot of the times my convos with folks in these moments would be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Wait, can you elaborate?" Like I'll do that a lot, where that kind of goes into. So we'll see where that goes. So yeah,
sessions for me. So yeah,
pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Without further ado, pleasantries aside, describe to me your relationship with your parents. Let's start with your dad.
Oh yeah, my father, he's always been he was the one that I got along with the best, because he and I are not only very similar, but on top of that, he just always had more patience, and he treated me as someone who was reasonable and rational at all times. And so whenever I was thinking something or I wanted to do something, he always, like, my mother would be the one that would be like, "Oh, this is stupid. Just stop," like whatever. Like she didn't want to tolerate it or whatever. Like, "You're young." But then my father, like, no matter what my age was, he's like, no, 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 let's hear him out. Like, what do you have to say? So then he would like go back and forth with me in a gentle manner until I'd come to an understanding on something. And I really, really appreciated that about him. He was deported in 2010, unfortunately. Like, it was just a very tragic, sudden event because he was actively trying to get his immigration status and everything done well. So I haven't been able to actually hang with, I wasn't able to really see him again until 2012. We spent that whole summer together. It was great. And then I wasn't able to see him again until 2018 when he and my mother were able to then reunite because my mother was not deported alongside him. But she was able to get her green card. And so at that point, we were able to go to Ghana, see him over there. And we spent about, maybe it was about 2 to 3 weeks to a month. I don't remember, but it was around there in Ghana with him. And that was great. He was still amazing. He was still like very funny, and I could talk to him about just about anything. And yeah, he was just a really nice guy. So
when you say you were similar to him in some ways, like can you elaborate on that part?
Yeah. Well, for starters, I do believe that he and I both share Myers-Briggs type, ENFJ. So yeah, so there's that. But I believe that he's a social 7, and I'm social 9. So we're both social dominant in the Enneagram system. And he's really like, I would say that he's more extroverted than I am in the stereotypical sense of he's like more boisterous and like entertaining. And even more loud, but at the same time, he has this really, really like Zen, wise, chill side to him that he spends a lot of time like alone, like studying his Bible, because he's pretty much like the secondary pastor of a church. So there's that, and he's very socially aware. He loves to read and he loves to teach. He loves to make people laugh. He's very connective. He's extremely kind, and he likes to just make sure that the people around him are like all taken care of. So I feel like me and him, like, we really relate on that realm.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, I got a lot of that, which is really nice. Now going to your mother this time, like moving to that side, how is your relationship with your mom?
My relationship with my mom, she's very much a caretaker. Let me turn off the heater for a bit. Sorry.
Oh, that was the heater?
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So my mother is very much a caretaker. She is also very traditional. I believe she's an ISFJ in the Myers-Briggs system, and a self-preservation 6 in the Enneagram system. But yeah, she's very kind. She's very reserved. She's very shy. And she just goes along with everything that my father says, pretty much. So there's that. But my relationship with her, I've always the way that I've always described our relationship as pretty much what I've said is that my mother is the type of person, especially when it comes to me as her firstborn, I guess, that I have to push her into the water for her to realize that she can swim. So that being said, I've always felt like I have to be the one to first, I have to know what I'm doing. And the thing is, I can't reason with her or explain what I'm doing to her. I can't explain it to her, and because she's going to question it, and she's just not going to really like trust it. So then what I have to do is I have to figure out like, okay, what exactly does she fear? Am I certain that this is not going to happen between us? And if that's the case, all right, then I can go ahead and do this even without her awareness, or even if she is aware, I'm still going to go ahead and do this. It's going to look disrespectful in the moment, but in the bigger picture, she's going to see like, wow, you really knew what you were doing all along. And in that case, that's actually how I've gained a lot of her trust, by her seeing that, okay, you actually are smarter than I think that you are. but she knows also that I'm smart, but like in a different way. Like, she's always talking about, oh, Denzel, like, you know, you were so fluent in English and you were able to just speak so articulately, like at a very young age. Like, when even people that were like your age or like older back in school, when they were still speaking like kids, like you spoke very clearly, like all the teachers were always impressed, and you were reading at the age of 2, and you were just so smart. Like every teacher kept on saying you're so smart, but you just talk so much, you just talk so much. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, was I bad? And then she's like, no, 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 you weren't disrespectful or bad, you were just, you know, you just talked a lot. And that's not any surprise now, obviously. But yeah, I would like, I used to think that because everybody would always say, like, all of my relatives, like, oh, you talk a lot, you talk a lot, you talk a lot. But it wasn't until actually when I went to Ghana and I saw my relatives, I finally asked them, like, so you guys always say I talked a lot when I was a kid and I was so smart. Like, what did you guys mean? They're like, oh, you just talked, like, you kept on asking questions. Like, who would not know? Like, and I was like, I was starting to understand, because usually when I hear people say, like, you talked a lot, then I think if I say somebody talks a lot, then I'm thinking somebody who just like, man, isn't these flowers just nice? Isn't this? And it's just like, bro, shut up. Like, this is not, you know, whatever. But according to what they were saying, it was like, no, like when you were talking, like it was sensible things and good questions that you were like asking about life and whatnot, and scriptural things and stuff of that nature. It's just that you asked those things and you just talked a lot. And a lot of people didn't know how to answer your questions at the time. So I was like, oh, well, in that case, I'm not as offended anymore when you guys keep on talking about me talking a lot. But yeah, I do know that she said, and I remember this to an extent, she and my father both said that I used to lie a lot, like incessantly. Like they said that even when there was no reason to lie, you just would lie. And I don't know. I don't know why. But that's apparently what I did. And I also used to have a sticky fingers. Like I used to steal toys and stuff from friends and all of that. So I know that was the case. Like I remember a distinct story where I'm a big Sonic fan. And in 3rd grade, my friend had a Sonic plush toy that I saw that he brought to school and everything. I'm like, yo, that's really cool. And I wanted it. And I remember that he wasn't giving it to me. And so I intentionally stayed back during recess and lunch and everything. I took the Sonic from his book bag. I put it in my own book bag. When he realized that it was gone, he knew that it was me because I kind of like asked for and expressed interest in it. And in order to like dodge further confrontation, then I pretended to be sick so that I could so I could get sent home. And then I started playing with it at home. My mom was like, "Oh, where'd you get it?" And I said that I won it at school. Like there was this fair or something. I won it at school, and she was like, oh, "Okay." And I did not know until after school that apparently there was like a directory. So the kid's mother was able to call my mom and be like, hey,
oh, dang.
yeah, and I got in trouble for that. And I felt bad, though, because I found out that that was actually like a gift from his grandmother. And I think that she passed away. I'm not sure. But yeah. So I feel like if I knew that, then I probably wouldn't have gone that far. But yeah, so that's the kind of kid that I was. And my mother was always just like really like irritated with me because I just, yeah. So you know, she says that I wasn't bad, but I kind of was. I wasn't bad in the sense like I wasn't necessarily like I wasn't disrespectful to people. Like I wouldn't tell anybody like to shut up or, you know, like just be rude to them. I was just like I just stole stuff and I lied.
I feel like this is like confessional at this point. Like, are we just admitting things? No, I love that. It's funny because I actually have a similar sentiment to your stealing and person dying, literally, where we had a babysitter who was, I think, in his 50s, I think at the time, and he had he had a really nice extensive collection of Pokemon cards. Like back then when Pokemon cards were like the gig. And so I had my own collection and I was super excited about it. And then he showed me his and he had a really shiny Mantine. And I was like, ooh, this is nice. And I just stole it. I was like, I want this. I will borrow it and I will return it when, you know, when I'm done oogling at the whole thing. So he died like a few months later. And like,
oh shoot,
yeah, which funny, I'm hearing like the ambulance sounds. Funny how this is all connecting. But yeah, so he died, and then my first inclination or my first thought, I told my mom, I'm like, oh no, who's gonna get the Pokemon cards?
mate.
And she was like, well, the government will just seize all of his belongings. I'm like, no, can I take it? I'll have it. I would rather just have it. Like, can I put my name down for like people who would want to own? I didn't have any idea of like what owning or ownership of division of, you know, things like that were. So I just felt sad in a completely selfish way. I'm just like, no, I could have made use of the entire deck of his. Like he's gone now. But something about that, just like people dying and me going like, no, your things, give it to me. So if you hear anyone dying soon, let me know. I guess.
Oh, so you're still that way?
Yeah, let me know. I'd like to put your items to good use, right?
There it is. Yeah,
good
that's
time.
Hilarious. Yeah.
So
coincidentally,
we've been stealing things. Or in this case, borrowing. Like,
no, I was
borrowing where there's no hope of it returning. I mean, I'm not gonna dig up his grave to like return a card. I don't even know where those cards are. I mean, it's small things, right? Like I would borrow pencils in high school and like all that kind of.
I borrowed chalk from my teacher.
Yeah,
and because I watched Chalk Zone as a child. And I really believed that one of these chalk could be the magic chalk, and even if not, pretend. And so yeah, I would just always like bring home chalk from school, and I got like a little chalkboard to play with and everything, and I'd draw with it. And I felt like, yeah, you know, these teachers, like I'm sure they have more. They have a lot. So
they do, yeah. For real.
They won't be missing it. It'll be all right.
That's literally my logic too. I'm like, are they gonna miss it? They're like, what is their emotional connection with this item? If they have a big one, then we're like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
You know,
but nowadays though, and I think because, you know, ever since I always grew up in a Christian family, but I didn't start taking my faith seriously until I was like 15. So I think it wasn't until around then that I became very, very strict with myself when it came to like lying and stealing, not only because I was afraid to go to hell, but like just, you know, I just felt bad. And now that's not really like as much of a fear and stuff anymore, but it's still like a very like FI value of mine. Like I like, no matter what, like I refuse to steal from someone, even if there's like just like no way of people like finding out. And with lying, I refuse to lie as well. I will definitely use loopholes and I withhold information. So, you know, depending on the person, some people do consider that to be lying. I personally do not consider it to be lying because, like, if you ask me a direct question, I will always tell you that truth. But there's nothing, but like, if you say this, whatever, I could be like, I never said that, you know, like I left out that part conveniently, yes, intentionally, but yeah.
Isn't that like lawyer logic in a way of like what you say can and will be used against you? So being very careful of what you say out loud kind of thing.
Exactly. And then also on top of that, I want to be ironically trusted, as in when I do say something, like there's also this Bible verse that's like, let your testimony be like so good that even if people like hear bad about you, they'd be like, no, that wasn't, you know, it about you or whatever. So for me, it's kind of like a similar thing. It's not exactly that, but it's kind of similar that I want people to know me so much for like telling the truth and being transparent that if they were to be like, Denzel, like I heard that you did this or that, whatever. If I tell them straight up, like I did not do that, this is not how that went, they can believe me because it's like, well, Denzel's admit to worse things. And so I don't see why he would lie in this situation. Like I want my track record to be clean. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting way to go because I think there's a genuine authenticity that comes with that as well, living
mm,
within your values and things like that, which
mhm,
is pretty. I mean, this is probably, I don't know if it's on the record or off the record, but like I've been super keen for TI authenticity more so
mhm.
than my typical FI authenticity. So I'm
Interesting.
kind of here for it when people are like sticking with their principles based off of
Mhm,
an internal thing that they are working with. I find
mhm.
that highly respectful.
Nice,
Great either
nice.
way. Like it's pretty good. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's respect, man.
Which reminds me, it's funny because you already mentioned you're younger, but if you could go into it a little bit more, how were you when you were like, younger? Let's say I'm gonna go by specific ages. Like let's say when you were just 4 or 5. What was that like?
According to my parents, very imaginative and always like just playful. I didn't have my younger sister. My sister was not born until 4 years after I was born.
Okay.
So my parents actually said that until she was born, like I was just again like always talking, just talking, just talking. But when she was born and she actually became like old enough to like play with me, then they realized like, oh, he just really wanted someone to play with because I was an only child
Mm.
and my mother would work at night, my father would work during the day. And so I just had nothing to do except like be at the house and like just, read my books and play by myself, play with like action figures and watch TV. And we didn't have cable up until like maybe I was like, I want to say like 11.
No,
So when
also relatable content. We didn't get a chance to hit internet or cable till then
yeah,
either.
yeah. So as soon as it hit 5 p.m., then there was nothing else to watch. There was nothing else to do because Dragon Tales, Arthur,
Oh,
Between the Lions, all those PBS shows, they were no longer on TV. So it's like, okay, what do I do now? I don't have anyone to play with. Yeah, just I can't sleep yet. So yeah, I just play by myself.
nice.
Yeah.
How was then the 10 to 12 ages then? What was that like?
Mm, I was very into things like Pokemon. Like I played a lot of Pokemon, and I loved playing with friends. Like that was just a really big thing. And I was very much in my social nine, as in like I have shame, but also no shame in admitting that the truth of the situation was that I just really wanted to fit in. So I was that stereotypical FE social nine person who just anything that would let me fit in with the cool kids or just whoever, like I would do that. Like they would even like tell me to do things kind of like as a rite of passage kind of thing. Like, yo, they'll do this, whatever. And it's like just to fit in and be a part of them, even though they were laughing at me and not with me, I would do it. And yeah, so in a way I was able to to hang out with them, but mainly like as like the laughing stock.
My
And
gosh.
yeah, it was
Dang.
yeah, it's like looking back, like I'm like, dang, like yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. How's the 15 to 17 then?
15 to 17. So that was when I became a Christian and I'd moved to New York because my father had been deported at 15. And that's when I think that when I became a Christian, that's when I got like an identity of my own in a way. So I became known as like the church boy and like just the one who was like very like strong in his faith and like teaching about like the things that we don't see and all of this other stuff and really helping people like learn more about themselves and also like become closer with God and like get more in tune with their spirituality and uh yeah, things of that nature. I think that was also when I started to really delve into my intellectual side. I probably already was before, but I know that it was extremely heightened, like after like around like 15 or so. Like
Mhm.
that's when I started to actually see popularity like rise a little bit because I wasn't just following everyone. Now it seemed like people were following me because it was like, wait, like he's not doing what we're doing, and he has all these reasons. Like people be like, yeah, so Denzel, you still haven't smashed any women yet? And I had like the clapbacks, like, I feel like the more people that you sleep with, the cheaper that you become. And right now I'm looking pretty expensive. Or so, like, you know, I'd say things like that. And that was another thing. My mouth got me into trouble a lot.
I mean, I'm not surprised
Yeah,
given
exactly.
what you told me already, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it got me into trouble a lot. Like one of my friends had even told me, like from back in high school, like I don't remember this totally, but she said, "Man, Denzel, like I just remember like we were in class and you know this one guy like he was like trying to because I was still being made fun of a lot of times by people, so I was still like bullied to an extent. But now like I was witty with like remarks, so I'd say things back, and all the people could do when after I'd say something back and embarrass them was like they get mad and then they'd want to fight. And I'm like, okay, I didn't really want to fight, not only because some of them I wasn't really sure if I could beat them up, but even if I could, my parents are going to beat me up. So I just I don't want to deal with that. So it's like, hey, no, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's not worth it. But yeah, that's kind of like what would happen. And so my friend was like, yeah, I just remember like one time, you know, so and so was like making fun of you, and you just started saying all of these big words, and only the teacher started laughing. And we were all like, what? And the teacher was just on the floor weak. I don't remember, but that was something that like I do know that because I didn't cuss, then that was like something I felt like superior about. Like I'm very much capable of utilizing gargantuan idioms to fabricate intelligence at will, kind of thing. And so it's like I would use that to my advantage, and that also brought people like to watching me, and then you know I became like a leader, especially like at church because of how articulate I was and how insightful I was to be able to, like, to help people see into themselves and stuff of that nature. But I really just, out of everything, I really just wanted connection. Like I was like, okay, finally people are seeing me and I want them to see me enough to stick around so that I can become close with them. And that's how like all of my romantic relationships were too. Every single one of my romantic relationships was me like being a mentor to them. So they like, wow, you're just so smart and you're just so eloquent and you're just so this and you're so passionate and deep and connective and strong in your faith and insightful and all of these things. And I really relished that, because in the past that just wasn't the case. I was a lame and all of this, you know. Um, yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so, but then that, like eventually those people, like I have so many exes that left me for somebody else who was like less smart and less whatever, but they were like more flashy in a way, or like more popular, or like more just more attractive, like physically maybe, or something of that nature. So it's just like, okay. And then I'd help them with their relationship with that person, just because it's like I can't force you to stay with me, and it seems like there's nobody else that can help you with this dynamic, and it's not your fault that you fell for them. So okay, so yeah,
Interesting.
that gives a lot enough information. Yeah.
No, that is really interesting. Now that I like that. Going back, I'd love to dive into the romantic side, but we'll go there in a second. But can you describe to me, because you mentioned your spirituality started in 15 or was strengthened during that age. Can you describe to me now, as the modern person that you are now, what your relationship with God is like, and like how you even navigate the world with that spirituality thing? I know it's a deep one, but feel free. Go all out.
Yeah. I very deeply believe in the spiritual world. And I am very deeply in tune with it. Objectively and or empirically, for a lack of better words, I really don't know what what goes on there, I guess I should say. So I'm tapped in, but I can't. I used to be able to say things with absolutes, as if like I was so sure
Hmm.
about certain things because I had a specific worldview, and my experiences like colored it a lot. But recent years, I've been able to see past it and see where the limitations were, where the biases were, and understand more where faith lies versus where just absolute truth, empirical, observable evidence is, and where that line separates. So, all that being said, I definitely believe in God, um, and I believe that He operates. People always say that God works in mysterious ways and whatnot. I hate that saying, but it's true. I believe that He operates in a manner that we we honestly just won't ever understand. Um, and I do also believe in well, yeah, yeah. I guess I guess if you want to ask more from there, but that's that. Does that answer the question to an extent, or
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah?
can. I guess my accompanying question with that. I love it, by the way.
Mm.
I how have you reconciled, like, let's say, spirituality with your mentoring with others? Like, how have you now utilized that in any way?
Ah, okay. Yeah, I've used my so especially in the past, I've done the absolute best that I could to become as theologically sound and just knowledgeable so that I could be able to teach other people the correct way to be a Christian, the correct way to look at the Bible, the correct way to interpret certain things, to pray, to just live out your life, stuff like that. So when they so I was the go-to person whenever like people, whether they were Christians or not, were having problems in their lives, like whether it was their relationships or their spiritual experiences and stuff like that. Like I was the one that they would come to because even like I had one girl who she throughout all of high school, like she was one of my best friends, and I tried all the time to guide her to Christianity. And she she was this ESTP chick, and she would literally say things like, "Well, if you ask me, Jesus is a pussy." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" She's like, "Yeah, like if some nigga spit on me, then I'm a swing." I'm like, so she yeah, that's the type of person that she was. But then like years later, like she kind of like came around because she started having like certain experiences where like she was being like raped in her sleep, you know, and like stuff like that. And like she would call me and she'd be like, and as soon as I would like pray for her, everything would stop like each time. And she's like, why doesn't God listen to me? But he seems to listen to you and stuff like that. And like I would like tap in, like as soon as like she'd bring certain things up, then I'd like ask her, like, did you have sex with a random stranger again? She's like, yes. Like, you got to block these, you know, spiritual doorways that you're opening yourself to. Like, okay, this is like, she'll tell me, like, yeah, you know, you just pray for me. What happened? Well, this is just happening over here. It's like, okay, I'm going to pray for you, but I have to ask you this. Did you watch Paranormal Activity? Or like, some you know, like Insidious, like movies of that nature? Like, did you, what type of stuff have you been dabbling with, because this is dangerous, you know? Like, so that's the type of person that I was for a lot of my friends, whether it was like spiritually or relationally or both. um, and I would teach them what theology was, like at least the best of my knowledge. um, and yeah, just like how I understood things. And I really loved to try to understand like other people's religions and stuff too. Because I've just always been like a fan of truth. Like I remember when I was in high school, and I was like again like one of the only Christians, at least vocal ones, like in the school in the Bronx. So it was like I was just really like known for it. And this Muslim girl
was like, well, Denzel, what if you grew up in a Muslim family? Don't you think that you would have been going just as hard for Islam as you are for Christianity? And that stumped me for a bit. I was like, dang, like, is that true? But then I really started to like get into apologetics, which is like pretty much, yeah, like the understanding of like, okay, like Christianity is real because if you look at this historical fact here, and if you look at this and you look at that, like I got really, really deep into that. So every Bible that I've had ever since I was 15 was an apologetic study Bible, like, which is pretty much like not just a Bible, but then slews of little blurbs and information like, by the way, we know that this is true because we actually visited the Jordan River at this time and we found this and boom, boom. Then they'll put like, you know, like reasoning here. So it really fed my TI, if you will. And it helped me to be like solid, like, okay, this stuff is true. This stuff is accurate. This is how I can know that I'm not just being dumb, as opposed to like, you know, other people that I knew at the time who just like, no, you just have to believe. You just have to have faith. It's like, no, I can't just do that. So yeah, but nowadays, like I will admit, like I've been seeing how, especially with knowing like TI, like everything has its own arguments. And it's just like, wow, it's not to say that Christianity is not true, but I can now see lots of reasons as to how it probably could not be. And as opposed to before where I was like, oh, I just have to help people understand. Like if they still think that it's not true, they just don't know enough yet. But now it's like, no, I can see how people can know enough and they still would not believe because there's just not sufficient, there's sufficient evidence to believe, but not to cancel out this or cancel out that. Everybody has their own TI. That just because it makes perfect logical sense does not mean that's right, but it can hold itself up. So that's kind of where I'm at now with spirituality. Like I used to be a little bit, I don't want to say forceful, but I used to really like, you know, I just wanted to help people. I just wanted to, I just wanted people to like not go to hell, you know? So it was like, yeah, it was everything was always coming from a place of love and like care. Like it wasn't like judgment, but now it's like, I can actually see how this probably, it could be, it could not be. And so, you know, I'm just gonna, if somebody asks me, then I'm like, hey, this is what I think, but I'm not about to preach it from the rooftops as much. Yeah, if this gets posted, I can already see a lot of Christians. Very upset with me, but yeah, to me, it's growth though. It's something that this year I really, really learned a lot.
So, it's giving me a lot of, yeah, it's again that respect for other people's TI. I totally get it. Like other people have their own things going. I think it really is just, it just boils back down to, for those who are curious and for those who really want, you know, that's what you're going to be putting your energy out there. And that's for the type of people you do want to have those conversations with. So we're really not trying to save everything and everyone anymore. It's trying to find the right ones. It's like we've shifted from the quantity to quality as you get older. Right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Because yeah, I did really just feel like everything was like, I mean, you'd go to church and the preachers are like, how many, like I was at church like a few weeks ago and the preacher was like, how many of you here have shared your faith with somebody? Yeah, look at the lack of like hands over here. We are called to do this. Do you know how many people are on their way to hell? And that would just like alarm you, you know? So like as a teenager, like that was a big thing in my head. Like, wow, like I know a lot of people and a lot of these people are probably going to hell and that's going to be on my watch. No, I can't let that happen. So I can't force them to become a Christian, but like every opportunity that I have, like I have to know my stuff enough and I have to pray for them enough and I have to be there for them enough and I have to set a good enough example so that way, you know, yeah.
You sound like a person that has experienced a lot of pressure in their life.
Oh yeah.
But and also like there's so much of you is as like the guide, the teacher archetype already. Like there's a lot. I feel like you have so much experience in just teaching in general, like
Thank you.
hosting even.
Thank you. Yeah, I do enjoy that. Like that's just naturally like the type of person I am. Like whatever I learn, then I want to teach. And because I personally found that everything for me comes down to connection. It could be the FE, it could be the 9, but everything to me comes down to like intimacy. So even when I'm like learning something about myself, I'm trying to learn it so that I can do kind of like what we're doing now. So I can share it with another person so that they can like learn more about me too. And we're like, like gauging more like intimacy, like, okay, like you're sharing yourself. I want to share some of myself with you as well. Cause that's what intimacy is, like both of us sharing ourselves. But if we're all just like for me just to learn myself like in general, it's like no, that's again that could be the 9, but it's like no, I don't want to do that. It's not fun unless if I can use it to engage with other people. So everything that I'm learning, even the shows and the TV, like stuff that I watch, it's like all so that I can connect with someone, like everything. And so
It is giving me very FE. Like it really does radiate. I will give you that.
Yeah. So unless if we can actually like, use it to bond and create intimacy, then I'm not going to waste time with it. And so if I'm teaching something, it's like, yeah, like I'm interested in this so that I can draw people who, all right, yeah, like you're into type, like, so tell me about your type. How do you relate to this? And now we get like closer in that way. Like, okay, like what sins have you been struggling with or whatever? Like I can help you here. Like these are the sins that I've been struggling with. Like I'm gonna be real and stuff like that. Like I've been really like I would really like gravitated toward. And I was just also inherently like interested in understanding like what did Jesus talk about? Like what was he saying? Like this is so fascinating. Like, and I just want to understand everything that I possibly can about this man. So stuff of that nature.
Cool. No, I'm here for it. Also, a lot of it is relatable to me being because like I remember you did mention back into Twitter about how you were looking at Hermes and Hades quite a few times. And I'm like, there is a lot of that just oozing porously. Like I'm trying to like try to in the face of being objective, I'm just trying to like compare it and like see if I could parallel that to other archetypes to see if there could be other ways. But no, like you're on it. It really is a Hermes vibe. Like the entire time, it really is giving me that energy. Now, speaking of, I love it how because I'm gonna start shifting this from like our so wholesome holy aspect. Because I'm gonna start asking you. I think I don't know if you might want to. If this is the thing that makes you not want to publish it.
Right. Everything will just be edited.
Edited, basically. So my question now is, when it comes to your relationships, like with other folks, let's say with that kind of gig. So what was it like your relationship with? And this is, and I can say before, let's say before Jamila too, like just prior. How did you date? What was that like?
Got it. Okay. So again, because of my faith, I actually dated very seriously. So like everyone that I like, even when I was talking about like exes, we weren't even like official because I had this mindset that if I'm interested in someone, I watch them carefully to make sure like, okay, before I reveal to you that I'm interested in you, I have to know if I'm really actually interested in you, just in case if you become interested in me back. And then I'm like, oh, actually, I've watched you a little bit more. I don't really like you. Sorry. So I was really careful about that because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But
wait, hold on. So does that mean that you've just been casually observing people as they like go about their daily business? Am I getting this? Am I reading this right? That you're just staring at people from afar?
To an extent, yes. Yeah.
That cannot be any more Hades.
I didn't notice until you just put it that way.
Like, hold up. Like, here's the thing that I agree. Like, I get the sentiment as well. Like, I totally understand the concept of being able to just see first. Like, hey, is this person actually who they say that they are? Right? and I would assume too that part of what you're doing is like even looking around, seeing the surroundings of that person, right?
Yes.
How do they treat their parents? How do they treat like, you know, their friends? You know, even if they were in a relationship, how are they treating their partners? Like you're taking in all of that possibility.
Yeah.
So as much as I distilled it to something more hilarious, but I mean I get what you mean.
Yeah, I ran a lot of simulations.
There we go.
Okay, like how would we interact? I'd intentionally, like, you know, I'd intentionally have us hang out in groups and, you know, maybe act a certain way and then see how they respond to it. Or I just watch them and how they respond to certain things. It's like, okay. And then when I find out that I actually do really like this person and it's like for real, then I'm like, all right, next step, let them know that I like them. Or before I let them know that I like them, I tried to get them to like me. So I did a lot of like seductive things. But once again, Christian, so I had to keep it as clean as possible.
Wait, can you elaborate? I'm curious on that though. Could you elaborate on like what you mean by you are going to try your techniques of seduction, but then how to reconcile that with your Christianity? Like, where is the line? Or I guess the line is incredibly fine in this case, like incredibly thin.
Yeah. I suppressed a ton of the more erotic stuff because especially like with a lot of the women that I was going after, they were Christians. And so it'd be like a red flag if it's like, whoa, this guy's like talking a lot about sex and stuff like that. Like this isn't future husband material kind of thing. So instead, which is, now that I say that, sounds so absurd. But anyway, like, come on. But anyway, yeah. So what I did is I think I charmed them a lot with my knowledge of theology and my so they saw me as like, whoa, like once again, and that's how I became like a mentor figure to them because it's like, whoa, yeah, you know so much, and I was the one that like they were able to come to whenever they needed like help with anything, especially in their spiritual life. And I wasn't like that. Oh, I know it was like very easy to be this type of person, but I wasn't the type of person that's like, yeah, you know, so because you're coming to me for help, then like, now I'm going to cop my feels and stuff like that. Like I really just genuinely wanted to help them. And since I really liked them, then if anything, I tried to hold back my sexual urges toward them until they would maybe like make the first move on certain things. And then I would feed back into that so that they could know like, hey, just so you know, like that fire is there, but I just don't want you to pull something like, which is very popular in the Christian realm, like, oh, you know how last night, like we were talking about sexually and lusting and this, that. Yeah. So I prayed about it this morning and I don't think that we should be together anymore or we should be seeing each other anymore because that really got in the way of my convictions and this, that. And that just looking long term, like that fleeting lust or whatever would not be worth losing a potential partner. So yeah, so I really did like withhold the best I could. And instead what I ended up doing was like doubling down on knowledge and insight and things of that nature to kind of like charm them and to show them like, yeah, I'm fitting as a man to lead you spiritually, and gave them just enough of a taste so they'd know like, and I'd be fulfilling sexually too. So,
well, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because I get the sentiment again. Like there is an aspect about it of just having to hold back, but also being able to like, okay, well, this like to be doing it in the proper way or in the right way to get into that. Like, yeah, like omitting certain behavioral stuff or aspects that you're just gonna think that we're just saving that for when we're more committed to each other, right?
Yep, exactly.
Was that something that actually ended up, you know, achieving that? Like at some point, I mean, because you're married now, right? So it's like seems to be that must have been the leading up to that point, right?
The funny thing is, and I'll try to like be scarce with details or whatever. But the funny thing is with Jamila, she was one of the only people that I did not do that with. if not the only person.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Do you find that because she wasn't like that, that you were able to just, you didn't have to think about it too much? Like you just,
Yeah,
it was just natural, like you're just walking into something that seemed familiar in a way?
to an extent. The biggest thing was actually because Jamila found out. So while I was still scoping her to find out if I really liked her, Jamila picked up on it, which
Oh.
other people never picked up on. So that surprised me. And then I felt like a punk if I didn't directly tell her. So I called her.
Because knowing she's an ISFP, it makes perfect sense too. She's like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm smelling attraction.
Oh, yeah,
something stinks here.
Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah. And yes, exactly. And so when it seemed like she had picked up on that, then I didn't want to be seen as like a punk or something. So I literally texted her like, hey, you should come out of your dorm. And I told her, like, she says I told her exactly like this, like, Jamila, I'm crushing on you. I don't remember that, but that's apparently what happened. And
something took over and you just like went for it.
Right. And I remember waiting for her to say it back because I didn't get to do my full out thing. Like, the thing is, okay, first, find out if I really like her. Secondly, get her to like me. Then thirdly, I reveal that I like her so that I already know at this point you're going to like me. We get together, everything works out. But she found out that I liked her prematurely, and I also didn't get to seduce her enough. In fact, when I told her that I liked her, then I was waiting for her to say it back to me. She didn't. She was like, oh, okay, that's nice. And she was like, all right, like, cool. And then finally, about like a few days later, I'm like, so do you like me back? And then she's like, this famous thing that I often tell people, but she literally said in the kindest way possible that she would only date someone if she knew they were going to be, she would only allow herself to have attraction to someone or like someone if she knew they would be her boyfriend. And she would only allow them to be her boyfriend if she knew they were going to be her husband. And I am 40% of the person that she's looking for in a husband because I'm not mature and spiritually mature enough. And I was like, oh, okay. Wow, well, interesting. Do you at least still want to be friends? I can't help that I'm attracted to you, but number one, I don't want anybody else to ever say something like this to me again. So, so you could be my measuring stick.
So you're like, wait, oh, this is nice, but also I'm offended. How could
Yeah.
you say that? The audacity.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. No, I see.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. That would be something like you'd want to explore that more for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which reminds me, how are you in the romantic situation? And like now, maybe this is probably factors now more because you're married. Like, what are you like as a husband? As husband, as a partner? Like, what is the vibe there?
I think, okay, so when it comes to like actual romance, according to her, I'm not necessarily romantic. I'm more affectionate and expressive. So I'm not romantic in the sense that I'm going to get her flowers and, get us like a chariot to ride off into, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah. But I'm the type that, like, I will write poetry and I'm very expressive, like, with the words. Like, if I feel something, I will tell her, like, hey, like, I actively search for every single opportunity to more intimately get to know her, understand her, and cater to her.
It is so ENFJ. Like, it's just bleeding ENFJ. I can't. I mean, like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Wait. Okay. So how? Now I'm gonna ask you some interesting questions. Like, how are you? Are you ever like a jealous person? How are you with that? With even the concept of jealousy?
This is something I've thought about a lot, and I don't think so. Like, I'm really, like, just like what I said, like with my exes. Okay, maybe I'd say yes, jealous, no to envy though. Like, I would be jealous in the sense like, oh man, I kind of wish that you liked me the way that you like him, but I also know that you can't help that. Maybe you wish that you liked me the way that you like him, but you can't really help it. So like literally one of my exes that I was like talking to and everything like that, she had at one point told me that she likes somebody else. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, as long as you like me more than you like him, I know that you can't help that you're attracted to someone else. She's like, yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know who I like more. I'm like, what? And yeah, so stuff like that. Yeah,
No, that makes
I
sense.
would long, yeah, I would long for them to like me, but I also wouldn't like, yeah, I'm not a jealous person. Like, yeah,
How about possessiveness?
possessive, no.
No.
No. Like, yeah, no. If anything, I enjoy compersion in a way, as long as I know, okay, actually, hold on, because that's the thing. I have to know where I stand with you. If I feel, yes, because a big thing for me, oh yeah, let me get my charger real quick. And then,
You're gonna charge. You're getting the charger and you're charging up mentally for that.
yeah, I have to be honest with myself here when it comes to possessiveness and jealousy and all of that. And I get very pedantic with those words, so it's like,
Yeah, no, I mean, even go for it, go all the way,
yeah.
because I think it helps me actually like make sense of the thing.
I'm the type of person. So one of the biggest things that I've learned about myself over the years, and it's actually embarrassing to admit, but I like transparency. So whatever. I used seduction in my platonic relationships because I noticed that unless if there was like an element of erotic and romantic lacing, these people would not stick around or they would not pay as much attention to me. And that pissed me off like a lot. So I think that is like a form of like jealousy, because in a way it's like, okay, we're great friends, everything's working out, you're like loving me, and then you find a significant other. You find somebody that you're attracted to. Next thing you know, and this is still to this day, like next thing you know, your text messages to me that used to go all day, you'd send me like 30 text messages a day. Now you're only sending me 5, and it's like, I know where this energy is going. And I would not mind that other person being there if I still just got my fill. I'm not jealous in the sense that I'm only jealous if I'm not getting my fill. So that's kind of like how it is. So it's like, okay, if somehow you are managing feeding the other dynamics that you have, because I feel like that's how I am. It's like, I try to pay very close attention to what my capacity is and who is important to me, and making sure that none of them are even hungry, like not even just starving, but like, are you even hungry? And I have to like make sure like, okay, I'm producing enough food for these select people. And I'm making sure that none of them will even have a rational reason to be jealous of the other, whether it's a friend or whether it's whatever it might be, because they know that they're all full at the end of the day. Everybody's going to this buffet and they're going to be full. That's pretty much like what it is. But I've noticed that other people have been unable to do that. They can only provide food or meal for like one person at a time. And then I will get the scraps. And I don't like when that happens, because then it's like, okay, I considered us to be close up until you started doing this. Man, you know what? I think I have to seduce you in a way to get you to become attracted to me, so that now you'll give me as much energy as you were before, or even close to enough energy that you were giving to that person. So as I started to get older, I did actually start using more of that seduction, like in the sense of like, I started like actively, being more erotic in nature with conversations and things of that line. And yeah, that was like a big thing for me, like when it came to like jealousy and possessiveness, to like answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, like, I enjoy compersion in the sense that if I'm still getting my fill and I'm content, and then the person wants to like serve somebody else, I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Like, because I know where I stand with you. And so they're not a threat to me. I'm only jealous and possessive if I see that that person's actually like a threat to what we have. But I want you to have more dynamics with other people, kind of thing. I want you to have more friends, you know, stuff like that. Because yeah, that's the type of person I am. So does that make sense?
No, it does. It makes actually a lot of sense. What would be a consequence if a person were to cross that?
To cross it?
Yeah. Or like if they did not listen to you in that sense, or like actually intentionally. Maybe I'm gonna say intentionally, but then keep in mind I'm also saying accidentally cross it too. But like what would be your consequence to respond, to react to that kind of action from another person?
What action?
Like let's so going back to the jealousy thing, or like not getting your fill. So say, yeah, like that person was texting more people than you. You went from 30 to just once a day. What would be your reaction now after
that? Jamila laughs at me about this type of thing all the time. Even actually like this past week.
I love how he'd look over to somewhere else. You're like, oh, I have a memory.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is the type of stuff that me and Jamila talk about 24/7. So once again, intimacy. So it's like she knows everything about, yeah. But because I understand that they most likely can't help it, then I don't punish them. But I also then recognize, like, okay, this is where I stand with you. And therefore, I'm going to be kind to you, but I'm going to strip my energy back, like, a lot. Not to punish you, per se, but more so to just not really... I don't want to invest where you're not investing with me. I like 69 dynamics. That's what I call them. Reciprocal.
Yeah, reciprocal.
Yeah. And so if I feel like it's off balanced and I'm noticing like it's because you just have more of an inclination to put more over in this direction, at first, again, I'll like amp up the seduction so that I can see if I can get that back. But then if I find that I'm putting in too much energy to do that, and or it's just not really working, then I will still remain kind and cordial with that person, but I will like strip my energy back. And it's almost to the point where they don't even notice because they're so wrapped up in that person until all of a sudden one day they look back at our flame and they're like, whoa, that flame died. And it's like, yeah, because you obviously didn't care about it. So why should I? Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if that's like an actual punishment, like if you would consider that a punishment. I don't know if you would have considered the earlier stuff as jealousy and possessiveness. But
it's not a punishment. I think of it as a consequence. Like it just ends up happening after, because what are you gonna do then, right? You're gonna be stuck sitting here, allowing something that's clearly affecting you negatively too.
Yeah.
And it's not so much as like, this is your fault, this is what's happened. It's more like, well, this is the result, right? Yes. Of what is going on. It's not something that neither of us can control. I mean, we could rewind it if you want to, but that's another conversation, right? So if this is what is the inevitable ball rolling, then the resulting would mean that you also will be withdrawing because you can put your energy elsewhere.
Yeah.
Too,
yep.
Right.
And that's exactly what I do. I end up like either focusing on the people who are already there. I always use this garden analogy. Like I'm a limited source of water and I have to be very intentional with the seeds that I'm watering. There might not be anything wrong with an apple tree, but if I don't want apples, I'm not going to water an apple tree. Somebody else can water an apple tree. I'm going to focus on my banana tree kind of thing. And I have to know, like, once again, how much water do I have? So I literally, like, in my phone, like, I have a hierarchy of friendships, which probably also sounds very ENFJ, but it's like my intimate or my goddess is like at the top. So like, that's like Jamila, like, you know, but then right below that are my intimates. And this is how I believe most people treat their significant others. So I give the kind of attention that most people would give their significant other to these select few people. that are my intimates. And then right below that are my best friends. And then right below that are my friends. And then right below that are my acquaintances. And then below that are strangers. So that's kind of like how I got organized things in my head, so that way I can know I'm not spreading myself too thin. And even with Jamila, like, as the goddess at the top, like, she even like said that we've had so many conversations, like, I produce so much food for this buffet in a way that's like, she's always full and she wishes that she could eat all of it, but she can't. So it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do? Just throw all of this away? No. All right, time to invite in the intimates, and then they get to feast. But I'm keeping an eye on Jamila. Like, is she good? So then from the outside looking in, people could look and be like, wow, I feel sorry for her husband. Like, I mean, for his wife, because he treats these people like, you know, how he's supposed to treat her, kind of thing. It's like, but they don't see, like, behind the scenes, like, how much I really invest, to the point where it's like, Jamila even said, like, it's too intense for me. So
you
like,
do like to inject a lot of energy into people. Like, you're very much like like you mentioned it before, there is a caretaker quality to what you bring to the table, if not all the time. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Have you?
Sure.
Well, let me ask you this then. Have you?
For sure.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you weren't able to provide?
Have I ever been in a situation where I'm not able to provide?
Where you've been kind of like closed off, and how did that make you feel?
I feel like, just because of the word ever, I want to say, like, yeah, I probably have, but I don't really have a memory.
It's not constant. Like, there's never been like a significant moment. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
the people that are with me, I'm always making sure that they're well taken care of. I've given enough for them, to them. But that's also, like, once again, it's like, to make sure, to assure intimacy is there, which is something that I had ran into and had to, like, fix myself from in the past. Like, okay, what I had to pretty much, like, fix with myself was that I had friends who I thought were friends, but I realized I was telling Susan Storm this, like, when we went to Disney. I was like, yeah, I realized, like, that the friends I thought that were friends back when I was a teen and even early college days, they weren't really like friends. They were really, like, codependent on me, and I tried to feed that codependency because I felt like that was the only way that they could, like, actually remain in contact with me. But the thing is, I told her, I was like, I don't really like helping people. And so, like, that's, like, the funny thing. It's like, it's more like, if I really love you and I feel intimate with you, then helping you just flows from me. But if I feel like we're not even really, like, close and connected and all of that, then it's just like, man, you're only, like, my friend and, like, writing me and all of this because there's trouble, and we don't really get deep. We don't, because what I really just want is the intimacy. And I used to think that, you know, the intimacy would come from having them be, like, low-key, like, I guess, like, codependent, like, always being the go-to guy. But now it's like, no, I have friends who don't even really need that much from me. When it comes to me helping them, they just want to continue to get to know me. And that's what I've always wanted. Like, I just want you to want to know me, because especially as a 9, it's like, okay, I would inherently just think of myself to be boring. And, you know, I talk about certain things and people are not like they're not as, like, engaged. So there's like, well, let's talk about you instead, you know? Yeah. And they love talking about themselves in that way. So yeah.
That is a lot of people, for sure. That is definitely, I've seen my fair share of that as well.
Yeah. But then finally, like, you know, I was able to, like, you know, dive into myself and learn more about myself. That's why I got into type a lot too. It's like, okay, the more that I can learn about myself and find people who actually are interested in learning about me, which is why I also started my YouTube channel, because I had a lot of things that I wanted to talk about that the people in my real life did not seem interested in. So I was like, hey, you know, I'm just going to make some YouTube videos of me just rambling about whatever comes to mind. And nobody's forced to watch them. Nobody's forced to subscribe. But shoot, even if this video goes up, like nobody has to be watching this, but it's nice to see like, whoa, 56 views on an hour-long video kind of thing. Like, and it's like, that's, I don't know, like that's nice because I put it into perspective, like, wow, that might not be a lot for like other people, but imagine 56 people like actually sitting here like interested in what you're saying about yourself. Like, that's pretty big. So yeah, that's where it all like comes from. But if I do kind of see myself as a caretaker, but a caretaker for the people that I really, really care about. And then occasionally if we're going with the hierarchy, the acquaintances and strangers are the ones that like, I mean, I charge for coaching, you know, like, like there's only so much that I can give just like that. But the intimates and the goddess and even best friends, like those, that 3-layered thing, like those are the ones that I give to the most. And I enjoy caring for them because a lot of them too, they don't need that much from me. Like when it comes to caring for them. So it's like, okay, we're spending a lot more time getting intimate and less time me catering to your needs. I don't want to cater to your needs too much. I just want to get intimate.
I live. Yeah, no, I think it's Hades Hermes makes perfect sense. And yeah, I think I have a good idea of your anima too by what you just told me. Well, a lot of what you just told me. I think you're Demeter.
Yeah.
I think so. I think there's a lot of Demeter. You describe your relationships with so many other people as if you were their parent. In a way, like you talk about other people with pride, like a parent trying to rear a kid to like succeed. And there's a lot of that going. Like I feel like you would be the type of person that if y'all actually eventually do have kids in the future, that's going to be your next focus. You're pouring everything into that.
That's true. Yeah, I definitely look forward to parenting. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're also probably the type of person who wouldn't shy away from kids.
No. Yeah. Yeah, especially not mine, at least. Like for other people's kids, sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'm not allowed to discipline them in the way that I'd want to, or I don't know how this, yeah. But like with mine, it's like,
See, I like that side of that. That's giving me that because I know a person who's a Demeter core, and people kind of assume that they're just givers of food, like goddess of the grain, and just being able to provide all the time. But they're picky, and I don't think people notice that about Demeters. And they were actually incredibly picky with who they put that in because they are incredibly aware of that energy that they can bring. They value themselves by how they are able to provide to someone, and they know that they can provide for somebody. So there's a lot of emotionality, like a lot of feelings tied up with that kind of behavior. So like when you do pass something on to somebody else, there's a lot coming out of you to do that. And so it's not just for everyone. It really is like you still have to establish a connection before you even like do anything else. Like there has to be that connection first. And there's not really a word for it. It was funny because when you're talking to me about some of your other stuff, there's a lot of logical rationalizations going on. Like you're just making sense of a lot of things. So my mind was going like, okay, well, I guess it's not that. But then like there are points there. I'm just trying to remember like what exactly that. The only thing that came up to me right away was that this is if not paternal or maternal instinct kicking in. Like I feel like there is like I can't find the right wording for it because what you describe other people towards other people, the energy you're investing in other people, it's like the kind of intimacy that I would assume would be incredibly present for someone who is a parent to someone of their kid. Now, a different metaphor I could say would be like the mother hen, like golden goose situation, where like these folks are capable of creating life, right? They're literally part of that whole, aspect of literally giving birth to life. So there's a lot riding on to make sure that they're strong and successful in their own right. Because if they're not able to do that, then their purpose of being able to be a caretaker would just be for nothing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot riding on that. And so I'm seeing like a lot of this aspect of you where you just need to really, where you're constantly almost like you're, if I were to visualize you for a second, it would be like a mother eagle kind of like putting their wings over other their folks, like spreading the wings to like see who is under their shadow, because whoever's under it thrives. Now replace shadow with like sunlight for like plants. It's like you, right? Like I'm always trying to make sure that the folks that are under your wings are well fed, you know,
Yeah.
are thriving,
Yeah.
aren't going to lose out. And like it's, at first I was like, what if there was a Zeus component to it? Because there's a paternal quality in Zeus as well. But I feel like Zeus's are kind of like that energy for all guys come out once we have kids at some point. Like it does come out necessarily, but you don't have the Zeus quality of emotional resistance. Because Zeus always likes to resist and always be like, no, logic above all else. We're not doing that feely stuff. Like whoever Zeus characters are the type of folks who are like, if you are under my mentorship, you will thrive. But I don't want to see you cry. Like it's very, you know, like I will always be at the top of the game. No one can, only everyone can do is just look up at me. But that's not your vibe, it feels. I feel like you're more of the you're with the people, around the people. You want to connect with the people. Zeus doesn't necessarily want to connect. It's more like, I am the source. Come to me.
Okay.
But like Demeter is very much like, well, the source only happens, like the spring only, right, you know, comes up if you come to me. So like I'm going to help you get to there. Like there's very much how do I put, like usually with Demeter folks, anyone that they talk to, anyone that are taken by them will thrive, will feel like they have a lot suddenly given to them. There's like a huge amount of resources that suddenly like come up when they're next to somebody that's a Demeter. And for some reason, there's always like this nagging thing of like, ooh, babies. It's for women, especially like for the women, for those who are actually like for girls who have very early Demeter stuff, they have like mom vibes at the age of 9. You know, they already have like that thing of like, oh, they're not coming off as naive. They're coming off more as like, I need to take care of other people. But then for the guys in Anima, we don't necessarily have that vibe. I mean, especially even if how men are raised, even like there's a difference sometimes with how guys are raised, never to really activate an instinct like that of taking care of somebody else, often like trying to be strong and trying to be, you know, presenting yourself as either a protector and eventual provider. But like you've kind of carved yourself an interesting kind of niche with your, like, you have the theological intelligence side of your Hermes, you have the ability to be really imaginative with the Hades, and all part of it being like completely to share and to provide as like the food, the spiritual food for the people around you as your Demeter. So I find that like a really fascinating combo. I haven't seen that combo yet, so seeing you exhibit all 3 traits is actually very interesting.
Yeah, no, I haven't read even the Demeter chapter yet. I just, so, you know, but that is something that I think for the first time was brought up to me by Megan, actually, Megan Lavoda. Yeah, on Twitter, because she's, as you probably know, like she started like reading the Goddesses book. And we were both approaching things differently. Well, when we talked about it more, we were actually seeing that we were approaching it the same way. But one of her things that she said, which I don't know, it could kind of seem like the Zeus thing, and I don't want to misquote her. It's all on Twitter, so it's public there for people if they want to go see it. But she said something along the lines of, I'm not here for your comfort. And I was like, well, you know, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you know, nobody can necessarily grow in comfort. But if we're looking at comfort, you know, like, as like, you have to be comfortable with your coach. You have to be comfortable with, I mean, like, if you didn't make me feel comfortable, Nate, I'm not going to be here sharing this with you. I'm not going to be here talking to you about this stuff. And then, so how am I supposed to grow if you don't create a space for me that's first comfortable, then I can like move. And then she used like the example, like, you know, like, you know, growth is like a roller coaster, this is that. And I'm like, I agree with you, but you have to be comfortable with the roller coaster, as in like, you're not going to be necessarily comfortable with the ride but you'll feel secure and safe. Like, so I'm not hopping on a roller coaster if I am not comfortable with the idea that this roller coaster is not going to drop me, it's not going to break down and stuff like that. So that's what I capitalize on. And then she was like, yeah, I feel like that's like Demeter energy. And I was like, maybe it could be, but like to me, it was just like, no, I just feel like this is also just what you like. You have to provide like a safe space, because like what you said with the Zeus thing, it's like that's like if you're gonna be under my thing, like yeah, I definitely would not be like that, because
not your style.
Yeah, it's like not like, how are you?
It's I mean, the best fictional Zeus I could ever think of. Have you ever remember the show Empire?
Yes.
That dad is Zeus.
Yeah.
Like fully Zeus. And it's obviously just a fictional version of it, but it makes me laugh when I see it, because all his kids eventually were like, oh, that's the Hermes, that's the Apollo. Like they're all similar. I'm going like, this is wild to have that out. Before I forget, I want to add something, like just to help you out with like the Demeter concept. So goddesses, Bolin described them with a specific kind of light. Like when you shine a light to certain things, she had different styles of it. So for virgin goddesses, the Artemises, the Athenas, the Hestias, she called it laser light. Now what that means is like when you have like a laser pointer, you really have no choice but to just look at whatever that laser is pointing at. So they're kind of like that. They refuse to really be there for everybody else. They're focused on the goal. That's the only thing that matters to them. So while they are able to accommodate other people, it's just that the priorities are not going to be the same. A lot of the growth aspect is like for their maturing to be more well-balanced is to actually try to activate more of the other goddess energies, or try to practice the other philosophies. Because if they aren't able to do that, you will see very selfish or self-centered, absorbed, too focused, like the corporate businesswoman CEO who does not give a crap for like anybody else. Very Athena, like she's just living that life. But imagine that kind of woman, suddenly she got pregnant, she now has to care for somebody else. If she's not able to create that Demeter in her at somehow, that kid's going to be completely neglected growing up, like fully. Now comparing that to, they call it vulnerable goddesses. I don't necessarily think they're vulnerable. I feel like they've been described that way based off of their myths, where they're like they've experienced a lot of pain, but right, they've experienced a lot of suffering, so they're like vulnerable. But there's a lot of strength in it. They're only called like that because they were the ones who accommodate other people in their lives. Bolin described the term as diffuse awareness. So instead of a laser light, you're looking at a table lamp, like just a warm glow in a room. And so when you remove the warm glow, it suddenly feels cold, or like it suddenly just, everything just feels empty and dark. And that's what other people feel when a vulnerable goddess leaves a room. It's suddenly the warm glow goes away. And a lot of the times with those types of goddesses, they often have to wrestle with feelings of guilt, because sometimes when they're in relationships and they need to pursue more of their own goals, or they need to start building themselves up, other people would want them to not do that, because then they lose their line or connection to what that goddess is giving them. So like a Demeter being like, I need to be my own person now, I need to like actually get a degree and be like smart or something, I need to work on my Athena side so I can be there for my people. She might be married to somebody who's like, no, don't finish your college degree, just stay at home and then just take care of the house. Like that's, I would prefer you to be like that. And so they have this internal turmoil of like, I know this is what I need to do to provide more for you, but you guys are telling me no, because you like that I am already giving like this side of me. So there's always like this in and out type of vibe with the glow. And she added awareness, because those types of folks too, when someone enters a room, they can feel who enters the room. It's also giving me very FE as well. Like when folks come in, an FE person can just pick up like, oh, this is the mood or this is the vibe that this person is bringing. So there is a correlation in a way where like folks who have Demeter energy can just like, like, oh, I can sense someone's now entering my realm or domain of just my warm glow type of thing. Relatable content in any way? What I'm saying?
Absolutely. Like I literally, I will make space. Like, okay, I see this person's like literally knocking, trying to get in, you know, and it's like, okay, I have to see once again like my capacity. Okay, do I really like this person enough to want to like? Is this a apple tree or is this a banana tree? You know, like again, there's nothing wrong with apples, but and I'm speaking metaphorically, of course, because if anything, I'd probably choose the apple over the banana. But anyway, like there's nothing wrong with apples, but I don't have enough water for you. I have to make sure that all the banana seeds are tended to first. And then if I have leftovers, then I take it to the next layers of the friends, acquaintances, even strangers, you know,
That's
stuff of that nature.
Smart though. Usually a lot of Demeters I've spoken to aren't able to make that strategy. So I'm wondering if that's more so connected to your Hermes doing a good job in making sure your resources are well fed personally. Because you seem to be the type of person too where consequence happening onto you will not often be happening to you because you're able to kind of bob and weave your way out of situations.
Yeah. And
because a lot of those folks get tied into it.
Yeah, it's something I had to work on for sure because I used to just tend to everyone. Like when I first met Jamila, like I literally would have over 30 people texting me at once. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, like, I get anxiety when I have unread emails. So I'm like, no.
Yeah, I lived off of my phone. And now I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb literally 24/7. Like
yes.
I never keep it off. That way I can only, you know, check when I'm ready. But that all took like a lot of like discipline that I had to like really like learn, stuff like that. Now with the recent update, then there's a way that you can put it on personal. So if Jamila texts me, then you know, okay, that's an emergency, like time sensitive. So I'll tend to that. Once again, she's goddess. So it's like, yeah. But certain people, they can't, like if my mom's, she's on my favorites. So if she calls me, that's going to come through. But other people, they have to call twice, stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely had to work on that. And that also came with like, when I learned that I was an ENFJ and Personality Hacker podcasts were like the biggest thing was like, oh, ENFJs tend to spread themselves too thin kind of thing. I was like, I don't want that to be me. And so I made sure to like really hone in. I don't like the whole idea of like, yeah, you know, extroverts, they have just so many friends. And so they don't really, it's like, no, my friends would never, like the real close ones, as bad as it sounds, like if you feel like I'm not giving enough time to you or whatever, then you're not an intimate. Like you might be a friend, and it's not bad to
if
be
not even like an acquaintance at this point.
Yeah. Acquaintances are probably the ones that would be more likely to complain about that, and then that's when like I feel it's like knocking, you know, acquaintances and like regular friends, you know, but the best friends and intimates, they don't complain about something like that. And so if I see somebody trying to like move up the rank, then I like watch them and I'm like, how much water does this person need? Will I still be able to tend to the ones I already have here? How much fruit are you going to provide for me? Because like some plants, like they take longer to produce fruit. And it's like, I can't be watering you this much and I don't get something back. And so I think that's something that I really had to like work on. But yeah, I can definitely see what you're talking about. And I think that I agree with it. I think that obviously like, for the only reason, like I'm wondering like then why did I relate so much to Aphrodite? Like even more than I did with the gods. And once again, like I said, I hadn't read Demeter yet. So who knows?
Well, there are aspects of Demeter where it wouldn't even be relatable based on what you told me too. There would be definitely aspects. It's just that with Aphrodite types, there is an overt sexuality that's already obvious when with her existence. Her light style is unlike the warm glow of the diffuse thing. It's a spotlight. So they're the type of folks that when you walk in, you do notice, and they often don't even try to look sexual. It's just people project sex onto them automatically. And it's funny because they're often not even the most, I would say, like there's not necessarily an aspect that they would like hoe out or anything like that. There's not that aspect. That's actually more Persephone, for lack of a better term. People might assume that the sexuality, the overt sex-oriented vibe, as like, because remember Personality Hacker talked about it, like the Instagram models are more Persephone than Aphrodite. There's a huge have you ever watched Mad Men by any chance?
I started it. I need to actually continue.
So if you ever come across Joan Holloway, she's the Aphrodite, because she doesn't really show with any revealing anything. There's really no revealing cleavage or like short skirts or necessarily, but her presence.
They typed her as ENFJ too, so
yeah, and so guys always lust for her. So there's always like that aspect. But then there's also that thing of her. She has a habit of chasing after emotionally distant men. Or emotionally problematic men. I've spoken to a few Aphrodites. They're hilarious to talk to in that sense, because whenever I ask them, I'm like, so who's your recent boyfriend or who's your recent flame? And they're like, have they texted you yet, or have they given? And they're like, no. And I'm just kind of like, well, sorry. I'm like, whoop-de-doo. And then there's also an aspect with Afros that are like, they very chemical. Very chemical type of folks. They're more seen in creative pursuits, and I mean creative in the sense that they want to be seen as the muse for other people's creative pursuits. So you're the Aphrodite would be the type of person who would like walk in and they will instill energy. They do, like how Demeter would instill energy as well. Like a lot of folks do as well. She shares that with vulnerable goddesses. Like Persephone even adds creativity to a mix because of her experience with the underworld. Hera makes you want to be a top dog, and Demeter would make you feel like you'll never be hungry with a Demeter. But then with Aphrodite, there's always like a very strong passion that she will charge a person to really. There's a myth called the Leonid City, where it's a type of muse where she's a muse of artists and singers and stuff like that, where she would inject so much passion and energy into this person to the point where they'll create all of their best works in their 20s and then die. They never make it to 30. Those types of guys. Because she makes you not sleep. Like there's a lot like there, and it's funny because it's not even about like she doesn't actually have sex with them. She's not like us. I mean, I call them succubi, but that's just me being a joke. But but there is like she's draining your life by infusing you with creativity, by inspiration. So if they're not able to, regulate that, and a lot of the times Aphrodites are not necessarily the type to be apologetic even about that. They're the type of folks who they show up and they're like, this is what I want and I'm going to get it. And if you don't want it, then watch me walk away. That's the femme fatale aspect. A lot of femme fatales actually kick in like that kind of archetype as well. You're looking at people like Catwoman, actually, who doesn't even have powers, yet is like, she always immune to so much things happening in the Batman world. She's able to like survive. I mean, I compare her with Poison Ivy. People might assume Poison Ivy as like overtly sexual as like the Aphrodite over time. I would say she's not, because she's actually more Persephone Demeter than she is Aphrodite, because she's an eco-terrorist. She wants the world to be, lived with all of the plant of her, she wants to give up her life so that the world can become green again. That's not an Aphrodite goal. Aphrodite's like, I am self-interested. She's like, if you can give me something, then we're talking. But if you're not, I can go off my merry way. But then Poison Ivy's like, no, I have a purpose on this planet. My purpose is to create life. Like she calls all of her plants her children. That, even though she's dressed like, she's always depicted as like, wearing slutty clothes or whatever, but that's not actually like, I feel like that's more someone drawing what they assume sexuality is supposed to look like. If we had actually had a Poison Ivy like in real life, she would not probably dress like that, or she would, but it would be for completely different reasons. The Gotham show was very much Persephone Demeter already, because she started as a child. I don't know if this is spoilers for anyone, but like she started as a child. Her constant mutation caused her to age rapidly. So she was always like changing her appearance. But like it only ended up becoming, she tapped into an Aphrodite-esque vibe when she got to her adulthood, where she was exploring how she could use a sexuality in a way. But unlike a true Aphrodite, that sexuality she's using has a purpose to constantly sustain and maintain the plant life that she's still supporting. There's always like the intention underneath. Aphrodite's intentions is always like giving herself completely into another person, because the resulting result between those two people is completely brand new, irreversible. No one can go back. But for Demeter, it's like, let's do sex, fine, but I want a kid. You know, that kid is my goal. I want the life that comes after it.
I thought that's actually what I thought Aphrodite was doing, because she was creating, like that was her creative process. Like, okay, and I mean, I don't know, like I'll scroll through this like really quickly, but first and foremost, I actually agree with everything that you're saying. I'm just trying to further like understand
where
for sure I went quote unquote wrong, but I don't know like how much of the thread that you already seen. But like, so I got this. And pretty much, said first and foremost, it should be known that Aphrodite, although most known for her beauty and sex, what she really seems to represent is purity and passion of personal, and what that energy can create, which leads to alchemy. I think this pairs well with Hermes. And so when I was saying that, I was actually seeing that like as kind of like the, like people probably like see Aphrodite as like, I'm just gonna have the sex and I'm like bouncing kind of thing. But like, it's like, no, like, that's what I saw as like wanting the kid. What would you say is like one of the, well, and I guess, so there's that. And once again, you could probably look at the rest when you get the chance.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I still find, no, you're right though, that it is the passion, it is the life giving. There is an aspect about her that is very much that. I would say it's the intention behind it, because a lot of the times people would tap into Aphrodite. Like she was written in the book as she's present in every woman who achieves an orgasm. Like she's there when the climax is what she's chasing. But she also has a problem in that she's emotionally unavailable for her partners. In actuality, she's pursuing these strong connections because she wants it for herself. But there is a problem when how it relates to the aftermath once the climax is over, and metaphorically speaking, because she doesn't always have to have sex with these things. Once the climax is over, there is a bit of a downhill that makes her like not even want to continue on with whatever it is, what else is going on. So like the tough part about it, in Personality Hacker, it's so funny because it was actually Antonia who even admitted it on air, which made me laugh. Her feeling not present with her kid is very Aphrodite, where she would like the second her kid is not in her eyesight, she does not care about her kid. And I find that funny. That was hilarious when I read, because I was like, no, that is exactly true, because she had to force herself to exhibit Demeter energy in order for her to sustain that life, because she can leave it, because for her, I am life. You look to me. If you don't want to look to me, that's your problem. And I know it sounds like almost forceful in a way with how that's expressed, but it's actually what is happening with her vibe, like energy already. So like she doesn't even have to come out and say that kind of stuff. You're already going to be drained the minute she leaves. Wow. So it's like she doesn't have to say anything. And so it makes me laugh because I deal with some folks are Aphrodite folks, and there are guys out there who are like, oh, I would really want myself an Aphrodite person. Like that would be really fun, or that would be really cool to hang out with someone like that. And I'm like, that's you go for it. Like that's not bad. Like have fun. Like you should definitely try it still. But like there's this drunkenness, what they assume that it's gonna get like a delusion. I don't know. But like they get into it and they're like, wait, she's not. I can't control her. And I'm like, well, you can't. Because if you try to, you're going to end up killing each other. There's a level of intensity that if you're not prepared for, it's going to end y'all's lives. Or if you guys manage to survive past that, y'all's going to be empty husks of who you were. And so, because she leaves nothing for you. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. It's something that she herself has to deal with. I've told Aphrodite this too, where I'm like, you guys need to be a little bit more mindful on what energy y'all take from people, because it is kind of sad sometimes, like when some Afros will like go out of their way to get what they want, and I'm here for that, girl power. You go do your thing. But then there is a consequence sometimes about them not being aware that they can actually cause that kind of problem for others. And they may not necessarily feel guilt. Like some folks take it the way that they do. And I think a lot of the times they have to come to their own understanding of like, or come to peace, make peace with that kind of notion of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't go so hard for some people, because they don't realize they live empty lives if they keep doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Like they long for this really strong connection that is almost always an uphill kind of rise to the top, but they never want to deal with the consequence or the result of the downhill. Life is always going to have a downhill. So there's like an idealistic quality with Aphrodites that they're almost forgetting that, like, yeah, life is not always up and down. But then like someone like a Demeter would be like, well, it doesn't matter if there's an up and down. I will always have food. Unless you choose to refuse my food is the only time you'll ever be hungry. And so there is like that aspect of they're both picky. They're both will and can use sex to get something. But there is a strong intention behind and reasoning and purpose behind everything that they do. Like they can both present themselves like I can see Demeter models and Aphrodite models, and like we've seen, strong businesswomen who are Demeters and strong businesswomen who are Aphrodites. They can definitely present themselves and try many of the same things. But like when it all boils down is like, now what? Once all of that is taken away or stripped away and they're finally able to like, they've got their fill, what are they putting that fill into? Wow. An Aphrodite would be chasing something else. A Demeter would be putting that fill into other people. If we were to visualize a whole bunch of cups and she has the divine like wine, she's going to be pouring it constantly. Aphrodite's like, well, I guess I got mine. Let's go find, the next one to mix with. But then sometimes she finds the right one. Sometimes she finds somebody who, regardless of what that person is or becomes, she's able to find someone that keeps her attention. Because Aphrodites are like never a victim. They're always like, I wouldn't say they're always the perpetrator, but they're never the victim, but they're always making those decisions. That's why they're not part of the vulnerable group, because they don't feel that shame that like, oh, you're not in my glow anymore. Well, too bad. And they don't have to say it. It just happens. I've seen too many. It makes me laugh because I've talked to some Afros who are like, oh my goodness, I feel like I've accidentally made a person like me again. And I'm going, like I'll just smile about it and be like, well, what are you gonna do about it now? And they're like, do I have to like talk to them and like fix that and then tell them that that I don't actually like them and that we gotta do something about this now because I only like them for what they were giving me? And I'm like, well, yeah, you kind of have to, or be honest that you are only entertaining their looking at you because you like the attention. And I'm like, I'm not one to say like, oh, attention is bad. Some people thrive off of it, and some people find strength in it too. Afros are charged by it. Like, what are we gonna do about it? Like, it's their instinctual urge to be looked at and have energy to perform. So, I mean, and a lot of folks can learn from it. The spotlight energy, theater, right? It's captivating. It is great. Like I was telling another person, where like, if we looked at theater more critically, in a sense, like for this context, when you see and you're finished like a play that touched you in some way, that's her power right there, being like inspiring you to take away from the performance to carry it into your own life after the show's ended. Like that's the very strong power of Aphrodite that we probably not often like talked. I'm not sure if it's often talked about, but that's why she's addicting for people. Because imagine having to have that constant plug of inspiration all the time. It makes sense to me why people would want it. But it's like she'll always carry that crack in the psyche of like not always knowing how she might be taking away from other people by getting them distracted. Even like it can be that thing, either distracted, draining. It happens. I don't know. I've said I'm immune to it because I'm kind of like doing my own thing as a diet.
Yeah.
I've seen. I don't know. I feel like I've. I mean, this is just a personal thing, but like some Aphrodites have like come up to me and be like, "Oh my goodness, life's hard," and I'm always like, "All right, what do you want? Like, do you want a drink?" Like, I'm very much like the barkeep, like
Yeah.
cleaning the bar.
Yeah.
Somebody goes, I'm like, "Oh, did
I
you want a
definitely see
drink?"
that from you. Like, there's some people who kind of like brag on that, but they're not really like that. But for you, I actually see that, like, no, you're really just unbothered and you're just
I don't
literally like
really
minding
want to help.
you're
There's
just
like
really just minding your own business.
accidentally showing. I'm just trying to. I'm just offering you a cocktail. Like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna sit here and talk about it. Like,
Yeah. For sure. And I can
but
definitely also see the Hermes there too.
does that help though in a way? By the way, sorry. Like, did that like give
That
you some insight
all
with?
absolutely. That helped a lot. I think that one of the things that I was just most bent on, well, I guess like it was the two biggest things. So like number one, which is like a lighter thing, was that how much, because all of what you're describing, it's definitely like in line with the book and stuff that like, I'd read and everything like that or listened to. But then I guess like the way that it was also portrayed was just how much of a creator and giver of life and like nurturer, well, not nurturer, no, but like in the personality hacker like podcast, like when you like read through even the notes over there and everything, like how she, like Aphrodite's one that creates change and just all that stuff that, once again, I put it all in the thread so that I can go back to it later, but I can't like
Yeah.
now. So all of that, it's like, it seems, and I know you're not doing it intentionally, but now I'm just trying to like reconcile, like, now I see a different view. And it's like, this is still like everything that I had heard, but that I just over focus on like how much she really does bring to the table with like helping. Did personality hacker emphasize this like a lot? Actually, and like she's not really like as much of a catalyst and just stuff of that nature. And then once again, like I said, I feel like kind of like back when I was trying to decide, like when I was trying to figure out like, am I a 2 or am I a 3? And then all of a sudden, like I take a profiling session, they're like, you're a 9. And I'm like, oh, I've never even looked at 9 before. So now it's
I
like,
mean,
okay, I gotta
with
look at
Afro, it's both. She is giving, and she is still like, it's that funny aspect that she's smack in the middle of the self-oriented virgin goddesses, but she's not a virgin.
Right.
But she's also smack in the middle too, where she is for the other people, but she's also like, for lack of a better term, not for the other people at the same time. I love it. I find it funny, like almost like a divine irony with her, because she's able to be emotionally present. She's very present oriented. Like she's in the moment all the time, but she also lacks foresight because of that. She's blinded by her own passion. So a lot of younger Aphrodites are often like misunderstood within themselves. They're like, how am I able to be this woman and people praise me to be like this woman, but also find myself shamed by other women? Like, what is going on? Like, and also, how is she able to create connections but also have it feel unfulfilling inside? Like there's never like, it's a hard mix for her, where the alchemical is such a powerful title, I guess, to give her, but it's also like, if we were to really look at a person like that, this person's constantly mixing. Their whole life is constantly like staring at the pot, being like, oh my goodness, what's next? I hope this one provides me what I need. It's always like, always combining.
I definitely have a lot of that too, but I do see like from this, like how Demeter would overpower that. Because like I said, which goes to like the second point, which is my last point with the Demeter thing. So yeah, I've always been actually referred to as like, yeah, you're such like a dad, or you're such like stuff like that. So it's like, okay, definitely get that. I think right. And I think a lot about parenting. Like that was actually one of the biggest things that I talked to when I hung out with Susan and Daniel Storm. Like we talked a lot about parenting, because I'm just like, ever since a young age, you're right. Like it's not like I kind of did always like, I want kids. And I always said I want 2 girls and 1 boy. Like, and I just, see it as like, okay, these are the people that I can help like mold to become like these great people. And I study the way that other people parent and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, like some of them, like I know I'm not a parent, so it's like I try to like take it with a block of salt, but I'm like, that's not gonna work long term in the future. Like,
There we go. Yeah.
if you should have said something over here, like, okay, that's definitely not how you discipline properly. You're supposed to be more kind and gentle. So stuff like that, like I paid a lot of attention to. So I definitely have that like parenting, like nurturing like aspect. But I guess like once again, like the reason why I saw the Aphrodite thing was because it's almost like, you know how you just said like, you know, I hope that this is it. Same with like the mentoring. So it's like, sure, I was a mentor to the exes, but that was my way of also like trying to gain intimacy with them, and not in like a father-daughter type of way. Because
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
and even with my friendships, like there's a very like strong undercurrent of erotic, intense, that what was very like subdued and suppressed, that I believe because of my faith. And so it's like sometimes I think back and I wonder like, oh, you know, if not like due to having, and maybe that's also why, you know, like even more of an indication, like, yeah, and Aphrodite wouldn't care. But like for me, it's like, well, you know, I had set an example and everything. So I could not just allow myself to really indulge in the sexual, erotic like stuff. But even to an extent, I still engaged a lot in that, because all I was focused on was the intimacy. And the doorway to that intimacy was through like sexual interactions. It's like okay, this is how not only I can keep you around, but also how to express my appreciation and love for you in ways that I'm not able to articulate. Is that, yeah? So I want to.
Well, I have a few things about that I think is fascinating too. Like for you, I don't know, like because a lot of it very much reminded me. There's a Hermes Hades quality as well with you, because Hades has a counselor quality, Hermes has a teacher quality, and then Demeter has a provider quality. So you really like a triple giving to other people and instilling information for them. There is most definitely still there. But another thing that because I've been asking this question myself, when it came to the archetypes, I kind of came up with what were your cores if you were a combo, and if you've assimilated like different aspects. So like how would we compare it if we were to like how a function stack works, you know, like what are our dominants, what are our auxiliaries, tertiaries, and because the way archetypes to me when I was reading through it and studying it was like it's incredibly fluid.
Of course, yeah.
Right, like it's
like
incredibly
around the table with people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like there's aspects too where you're like because for the women, how Bolin described them, the women automatically would be forced to confront their other archetypes, because a lot of it is matched to how a woman is in her cycle of life. Like women will eventually, like as a general sense, you know, either will have children, might have children, will entertain children, you know, sex is going to be a thing once she reaches maturity or whatever. Like there will be a marriage situation or like a committed relationship might pop up. She might be an old crone who's wise and sage-like. These are all just things that women will eventually hit their chapter. We don't really have that as guys. Bolin didn't really describe us as having a cycle of life. We're more like the gods' energies were defined more as like what we could do. You know, folks who were teachers, folks who were drunkards, folks who, you know, were fathers, but it were explained of as based on our action rather than who we are. So what I was kind of questioning during the entire time when I was like looking through all of these, like, and comparing it and paralleling all of that kind of stuff, was that if asking yourself what trait or what energy have you been manifesting or like borrowing or even expressing to like fit a need in your moment, in the moment. So like just because, you know, you're not exhibiting all the Aphrodite traits but
Yeah.
then you still can relate to Aphrodite situations, would imply that there is still an energy there because she's gonna be present in there anyway, right? Like, just we're not always like, I've seen sometimes it makes me laugh because I've seen some very how to put it, like very what's the word, core Persephones that are almost like too obvious. That makes me laugh sometimes because they're like they can't be anything else for some reason, and I don't know why that is, but I guess they still have yet to explore other aspects. I've seen a triple virgin goddess who's practiced both Athena, Artemis, and Hestia at the same time. Wow. So it's like really strange combinations of people, but combinations will always exist, and those combinations makes me laugh because that triple person has a lot of trouble with sexuality and like putting herself out there and being attractive because all her life she's just been focused on that laser light.
Right.
So like even the concept of like sex and attraction and being with somebody else is just an alien component for them. But then like I was like telling that person, I'd be like, well, imagine if Aphrodite were to pop up, if you were to allow that energy to flow into you, like how would you be able, like it would be able to, because we all have instincts in us anyway. So it's not like we cannot be that way. They will eventually show itself up anyway. So it's not wrong that there are things that you're noticing and picking up for that are Aphrodite, because there could be a lot of moments in your life where that particular energy was still very much relevant, or it became relevant because you needed it to be relevant.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe she even popped up at a time where you were questioning something because you're like, wait a minute, how do I reconcile this idea of sex in a more pure sense that's not corruption? Because I would say that a lot of her archetype has been corrupted in nowadays. People assume that she's just the goddess of sex, but she's actually not.
Right.
She's the goddess of love. It's different.
Yeah.
Right. Intimacy is still there.
Even more, like if anything, I don't think I was trying to reframe it, because I thought I was just seeing it for what it was.
Exactly.
Or misunderstanding. But now I'm like going back and questioning, like, but maybe was I actually trying to reframe it because I was trying to make her more Demeter. But yeah, like I said, like with Demeter,
that's a question you asked yourself for sure. You know? Yeah. See how that looks, right?
Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna do that. Yeah, like I will definitely read the Demeter chapter and everything like that and go back to it, because I feel you. Like all of what you're saying, like definitely makes sense. I'm always laughing at myself with, it's like, okay, well, I'm glad I at least got the Hades and Hermes right. I did also think that I had like a lot of Apollo. I didn't see any father gods, but I thought that there would be like a lot of Apollo there. But and maybe, you know, like once again, like I know that everything is present. Like I see, you know, stuff there, but like I just thought when I think of like the prominent figures at the round table of my psyche, then I always thought, okay, Hermes, Hades, Apollo, Aphrodite. But now I'm like, oh, so it's Hermes, Hades, Demeter, Aphrodite, Apollo, or interesting. So now that's something that,
or maybe that table of yours does house all of them.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to house just the first three.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah. I know that they're there. I definitely know that they're there. I'm looking for the loudest of voices.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it's funny you mentioned Apollo too, because I was actually having a moment when you were talking where I was like, could there be an Apollo quality to this? Because a lot of NI people that I've talked to have like a problematic Apollo side to them. But then I did speak with an ENFP Apollo, so that was kind of an interesting gig to find out about. That was her Anima or Animus, and I found that hilarious. But no, what I mean is like, because Apollo has the Oracle of Delphi syndrome, where they are incredibly wise, but no one believes them. And I was like, ha! There we go. Where people they will warn people, but nobody listens to them, and then they just have forced to watch people suffer consequences all the time. And it made me laugh because I'm like, that's so. It is very NI of people just not listening to their insights and just suffering because of it. And so like, there is concept or aspects of what you said too, like especially with your relationship with your dad. Then again, Hermes and Apollo are both favored by their dad, so you have that going on. I don't know. My question could be like no, sorry, like I just mean like maybe your dad must have instilled an Apollo vibe to you. I don't know.
Probably.
Like, or maybe he is one. I don't know. Like,
yeah, he could be. Yeah, because that was that was just something that I was like considering at the time too, because like just like how you said, like, oh, you seem like to be someone who had a lot of pressure on you, and I was the role model, and so I was like, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of Apollo there, but then there were certain things I was like, yeah, but I am good with, you know, being able to talk to people, and so yeah, and I knew that these aren't like static, so I was like, yeah, there's aspects of Apollo that I didn't relate to, yeah, yeah, but yeah, this all makes definitely like a lot of sense, and I feel like yeah, the rest of it I just have to process.
Well,
but
I
yeah.
do want to say with your dad too, because you mentioned a lot about how your dad is incredibly present, if not like he is the loud one that people look at, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of influence going there. I mean,
Mhm.
Apollo is a god of sun too, so it's interesting that that might be playing into that situation where it is kind of cool though. Like if that was the vibe, like if that is true that your dad is an Apollo, passing that on to you would be very fascinating because you know, instilling into your son about how you are supposed to be a beacon of light for other people. I find that interesting.
Yeah.
My parents aren't like that. Like I have very muted, subdued parents, so it's interesting to watch sometimes, like how, and you have like one hyper extroverted archetype, which is the Hermes side, and then you
Right.
have the caretaker, which is Demeter's side, but then you also have the hyper introverted Hades. So it's like you are your own swirl of you're a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah. Yep.
You're a mess internally. So.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that all definitely makes sense though. I definitely hear you. Wow. Well, congratulations, Rasa. You've done it again. Seriously, I really, really appreciate this. I'm glad that I had it recorded because this is definitely something that I will love to refer back to. That's why I write a lot of my tweets and my videos and stuff because I like to go back and look at them like, huh, look at what I said over here. That's funny. Oh, look at what this person said here. Interesting. Oh, and like when I go back in my videos, I see now all of the 9, and I'm like, how did I not know this? But but you know, yeah. So with this now,
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
at
be able
least
to
you
look
have
back.
that. I've just been stuck as like the 7 and 3. Like it's I don't think I've ever explored others. It's hard for me to
Mm,
explore the other
mm,
ones. Like
mm,
that one to me was like really when people were like there's no way you're anything else. Like the 3 was very much like coming up second when that like
mm.
always. I'm also very shameless about it too. So it's just kind of like great. So I have to deal with that issue too. I'm like okay.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. But yeah, I appreciate it. And just in case, once again, if this goes up, where can people? Because I know that you said I don't know how much you're about to be doing this, but like prices, where they can find you, so that they
Oh
can like
yeah. Oh
they want to
gosh,
do
that's a
this. Like,
great
yeah,
question.
yeah,
They should probably I haven't gone full out with this yet. If they want to book something with
and where
this,
they can be updated.
they can
You know,
just email me. I would say I have a public email for folks that are interested and I
gotcha.
can answer them on that email.
Cool,
It's
awesome,
asktherasa@gmail.com. That's literally what it is. Yeah,
awesome,
they can
awesome.
comment, send be like, hey, I'm interested in something. Can we book an appointment? And I'd be like, hey, let's establish a conversation on email first and then see where that goes and then we could fit you in. Yeah.
Cool. And do you want to throw a price on that right now, or not yet?
I love that. It's funny. I'll base it off of what the folks from last year have said. You're looking at it. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't put a price on it. I would say that it's a conversation through an email. I would say would be
Okay,
much
okay,
better. Yeah,
gotcha.
I'll keep it
All
on
right,
a
cool.
that way because I want to be able to accommodate for folks who either are just interested in finding out who they are or folks who want to take it further and they want to know how they might even be able to use the archetypes in the rest of their lives, right?
Right,
I see that as 2 different price points
right.
in a
And
sense.
he'll be able to take donations.
Tips, right?
If you're happy, yes, tips. If you're happy with what you've received and you were able to get it for free, definitely give the tip. Yeah, so but cool, awesome. Yeah, I'll have all of that in the description. And once again, just thanks again, Nate. It was nice getting to talk to you again. Seriously, I
Yeah.
love speaking to another NF guy. Like our conversations are always awesome.
That is true. We haven't really I mean, granted, I don't talk much to I don't think I've
Yeah,
had like long convos. I mean, I think it's more me, COVID, and being more hermetic. Like, just just dealing in my own thing. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, but we always pick up where we left off.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if anything, this, especially with this journey now, I'm definitely going to come back to you as I read the demo chapter and stuff. So we're going to talk about that. So yeah, thanks again. Thank you for taking time to watch that video. If you watched it, whether it be on regular speed or 2x speed, I appreciate it. And if you don't mind hitting that like button for me, it really helps this humble channel out. Also, if you haven't already subscribed and you like the content that I make, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button. That way you'll be able to keep in touch with all the new posts that I make. And then also be sure to check out my playlist where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos, because I think that a lot of those have some great quality content too. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Make sure to leave comments, questions, book me for coaching sessions at denzelmensah.com, and God bless.